stories.
Please don't kill me. I have a lot to live for. I have a wife and kids.
I don't know if many of you remember this, but in 2016, there was a creepy clown trend where people dressed as creepy killer clowns and would hang out in places after dark or stalk people. My story takes place on my college campus during fall of that year. I lived with my grandparents before leaving for school, and I am extremely close to them. Also, I am very shy and had zero friends or people I regularly hung out with at school. I wanted to reach out and meet new folks, so I signed up for a salsa dancing club that I met on Friday nights. I told my grandma over the phone, and she was happy I was putting myself out there. She asked if I was going with anybody. No, I told her. I'm just going to go by myself. Are you sure? She asked. Don't any of your roommates want to go? The idea of talking to my roommates terrified me. I could handle structured gatherings, but personal conversations left more room for awkwardness to creep in. No, they're not here. I don't want you walking around campus by yourself at night. I thought my grandma was just being overly protective. Grandma, it's fine. The streets are well lit, and it's only a 10-minute walk. It's perfectly fine. Well, if you're not going with anyone, call me and let me talk to you on the phone as you walk back. I agreed. That evening was incredibly fun, learning the basic steps and dancing to upbeat Latin tunes. At around 10:30, I felt ready to head back to my dorm. So I snuck out of the building and headed towards my dorm. Although the paved path I was walking on was lit by street lights, it seemed darker than usual. In addition, the entire campus was deserted. Normally there were quite a few kids my age wandering around, but that night there was not a soul to be seen. I dialed my grandma and made small talk with her as I walked. I took my heels off and carried them in my free hand. Now the path I was walking on went through a stretch of sidewalk that was perpendicular to the one I was taking. Under one of the streetlights about 10 meters away, I noticed a lone figure standing with its back towards me. The figure, hearing me chat on the phone, slowly turns towards me. He was tall and heavy-set, with wide red hair, and appeared to be wearing light blue pajamas. His face was obscured by a killer clown mask. The mask was stark white with dark black eye sockets and a twisted, malicious grin. Time seemed to suddenly slow way down. The clown did not move towards me. He simply stood there, staring. I knew I had to think fast. I contemplated my options. I could A, scream like a little girl and run, B, approach him and confront him, or C, pretend he did not scare me. The entire moment I just described couldn't have lasted more than a second, but in that moment, it felt like an eternity. "Are you there?" I heard my grandma say, remembering to breathe with the phone still in my ear. I decided to go with plan C. I broke eye contact with the clown, so anyway, I said loudly enough that the clown would hear me. "Yeah, I'm on my way," I continued. "Lopsided squid, what's going on? Is everything okay?" I heard my grandmother ask, her voice suddenly filled with anxiety. As confidently as I could, I walked past the sidewalk where the clown was standing, continuing to chat. His head slowly turned as I walked past, watching me until I was out of sight. I ducked into the archway of the nearest building and tried the door, praying it was unlocked. It was. Once I was inside, I slumped against one of the concrete walls and broke down in tears. What a pussy. I explained to my grandma what had just happened. My grandma yelled for my grandpa to dial the campus police on his cell phone so that I could stay on the line with her. I got up and started pacing up and down the empty halls, checking every door and window to see if the psycho clown had followed me. Was he just a stupid kid doing this on a dare? Or was he someone with more evil intentions? Some of the creepy clowns in the news had axes or baseball bats. I had no idea if mine was armed. When my grandpa tried to explain to the officer on the phone what had happened and that I needed help, he told my grandpa, "Your granddaughter needs to make the call herself." Apparently the reason I had to talk to them was so that they could be sure the call wasn't just a prank or some stupid reason like that. The point is that they wouldn't take my grandparents' word that I was in distress. I would have to hang up with my grandma and dial the campus police myself. Now, not knowing if I would survive the night, I told my grandma, between sobs, "I love you. I love you too." My grandma was also crying. I dialed the campus police and told them who I was and what had happened. The officer on the phone sent several other officers to find me while I stayed on the phone with him and gave him a description of the clown. As I was talking, I heard a door open. I froze. Was the clown here? Did he find a way in? A tidal wave of relief washed over me as several officers came striding down the corridor. They walked with me back to my dorm. As soon as I was inside, I locked my door and window, and I shut the blinds. I called my grandma back to tell her I was safe. After talking for a little while longer, we said goodnight. Since then, I've made a few friends at school. While I'm in a better place now, I don't go out alone after dark anymore. And as for the creepy clown, let's not meet again. Some may remember the great clown incident of 2016, where people would dress up like clowns and go around with balloons and signs, sometimes even weapons, to spook people. Though these sightings were mostly reported in America and Canada, the UK also had their fair share of encounters. I personally had 3. It was October, surprisingly enough, and school was in session when the first one showed up. I was in math class when it happened and heard about it during lunch when my friend very casually mentioned it in passing conversation. "Did you hear about the clown sightings?" "Oh yeah, it's crazy, right?" "I know, yeah. Did you see the one that showed up in the car park?" What? Apparently a few students had witnessed not one, but 2 clowns in full costume wielding balloons on school property. The first skulked into the school's car park and stood in the middle of it, looking up into the windows and waving at the children, looking back down at him, while his friend watched by the gate. This didn't last more than 5 minutes, as the receptionist came running out yelling to them that she should call the police. The first clown very calmly turned and walked back to his friend, and they both piled into the back of a black car, waving goodbye to the receptionist as they drove away. The second encounter was also one that I didn't witness but heard about. Friend and I were leaving school together on a Wednesday and saw the place was swarming with police officers. They were parked all the way up the road, escorting children across the streets, and even stationed outside local shops. I asked about it, and I got bits and pieces of information. All the people had shared similar stories. A clown had created a Facebook account Their profile picture was a generic creepy clown, and their name was Citation Needed, the Clown. The user posted a profile picture of our school with the caption, Wednesday, 1:40 p.m. Our school saw it and freaked the fuck out. The faculty called the police and they were stationed outside of our school for another week after the incident, though nothing really came of it except a report later that night of a clown sighting at one of the local shops. Finally, the last encounter was one I saw with my own two eyes. I was in the car with my dad. He was driving me home from band practice, and as it was October, it was already pretty dark out. We pulled around the corner into our street when my dad suddenly slammed on the brakes. A fucking clown was stood in the middle of the road, right at the turning. If my dad hadn't been so quick on the brakes, we would have surely rammed into him. My dad blew the horn and rolled down his window to yell at the dude, who didn't move a muscle. The clown just looked at him. It wasn't holding anything, just standing there. My dad and I share a lot of things, including having a wild temper. But what we don't have in common is how we handle our anger. He's a confrontational person, while I just let it bubble inside until I get to my room and let loose on any poor piece of furniture that may be too close. My dad gets out of the car and starts angrily walking towards the clown, who must now see just exactly how pissed off he is. My dad is taller than the clown and a lot larger, with tattoos on every inch of his body and a biker beard. The clown must have seen this hulking, tatted guy charging towards him, yelling profanities, and chose to live as he kinda jogged backwards in his massive shoes onto the pavement, then pointed to the car with one hand, out his other hand, out to stop my dad, and made a ladies first gesture. My dad, though confrontational, knows a win when he sees one. He climbs back into the car, still seething with anger, and peels away. By the way, as this was going on, I was sat in the passenger seat in silent terror. So this was in the summer of 2016. I was 15 when all of the weird clown shit was happening to me. My little sister and my mother went on a road trip to see my grandparents. Now at this point, we were on our way back home, and we were in Georgia. We stopped at a gas station around 6 a.m. It was still very dim outside. My sister and I were dead asleep until I heard my mom leave the car. My sister was still asleep. Okay, really quick, let me set the scene up. Me and my sister were laying in the back seat. Her head was on the opposite side of the car, and we were directly next to each other on the seat, so I could see perfectly out her side of the car window. That's kind of important. Anyways, so I wake up and I'm really groggy, but suddenly my attention is jerked to its maximum capacity when I heard a horrifying, pitchy laugh that didn't even sound real. In that moment, I thought I was in some weird lucid dream state until I snapped back to reality. I sat up at a 90-degree angle and looked out of the windshield, and there was this man with a red balloon dressed up very similarly to the original Pennywise, but dirtier and cheaper. I watched in actual fucking disbelief as he went from person to person, laughing in people's face. He went up to a little girl, probably like 6 years old, and her mother, pinched her cheek, got up in her face, and said something along the lines of, "Hey, princess, Wanna be my friend? And the mom hit him and screamed at him to get the fuck away. He then started laughing like a maniac again. Then he skipped over to my mom's car, saw me inside, literally shaking under my blanket, pressed his face up against the glass really hard, and started pointing and laughing at me. I pulled the blankets up above my head, but I could still hear him laughing his ass off. I swear, I heard him try to jiggle the door handle a few times as well. The only thing that sent him away was the same mother of that little girl yelling at him and threatening to call the police. I heard him leave, and so when I sat back up, I saw him skipping away, and he was still fucking laughing. It almost sounded like gagging at this point. I mean, the dude was losing his mind. Later that day, I mean honestly like 45 minutes after he left, we came across an active missing persons search in a forest by the road, not too far away from the gas station. I have no idea if he was involved, but I remember riding by and feeling like it could have easily been me or my sister. I was 15 then, now I'm 19. I mean, I'm a 19-year-old dude, and I love horror movies and gore, scary stories, ghost hauntings, blah blah blah, but the details of this weird-ass experience have never left my mind. Although I was really upset at the time, I'm glad I have an interesting story to tell, but it's really scary to think about what could have happened if the car doors weren't locked or something. Makes me nauseous. So yeah, insane laughing clown man who basically made out with my mom's car window. Let's not meet again. I was 15 and my brother was 13 at the time we moved into our new home. We had woods behind our home separated from our yard by just a 4-foot tall fence. Me and my brother went into the woods to adventure, but we never went far enough to where we could not see our home anymore. My stepfather who lived with us told me and my brother an old man complained about us leaving trash in the woods. We have never brought trash into the woods, nor did he probably own any of the woods. One day we went into the woods, the furthest we have ever been, adventuring as usual. When we no longer saw our home, we looked into the deep woods and saw a shadow behind a tree. The noise we heard next haunts both of our dreams. We heard a loud laugh of a clown that sounded like it came straight from the movie It. We ran faster than we ever had before, jumped our own short fence, and told our mother what had happened. She did not believe us, but to this day, when I get home in the dead of night, and the only light is from the porch and barely illuminates the fence, I swear I feel the sense of being watched as I unlock the door and enter my home. Mysterious clown figure, let's not meet again. If you are new, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me out. And if you are already subscribed, welcome back and thank you for subscribing.